All right. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? Jay here. Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A. It's Black Coffee Friday. So on this day, while everybody's running around getting coffee, getting shopping done, we're going to be here promoting for people to drink coffee black on Black Friday. If that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense, of course. What I got here right now is this thing called San Serval, my favorite dessert. It's from the Philippines. My mom made it. I'll tell you more about it as we get along. I thought that I would bring this today. We had it yesterday for Thanksgiving, and I thought, you know what? This is the best thing to go with coffee. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. So how y'all doing today? Welcome back to the show. Good to see you. This is the Coffee Q&A. We do a daily live stream on weekdays about coffee, talking about coffee, and whatever is on our minds about coffee, tasting, coffee reviews, whatever. So it's Black Friday. How you all doing? Going out shopping? I'm thinking about doing some shopping myself. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go. I should go. I'm looking for the deal. Neil, good to see you, man. I'm glad you were able to join us. Eric, good morning. How are you doing? All right. So today, for Black Coffee Friday, I've got a really special coffee. This is a coffee from Paradise Roasters in Hilo, Hawaii. Now, Paradise is a company that's owned by one of my really good friends in the coffee business, R. Miguel Meza, and Miguel and I have been friends since I started in the business. We actually kind of started, I think, right around the same time. So Paradise is a company that was started in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by Miguel's parents back in the early 2000s. So Miguel got into the business probably right around 2002 or so, about the same year that I got in. And he started, working for his family's business, doing barista stuff. But I think his real passion was really, an interest was for processing and growing coffee. He wanted to work in the fields, on the farms. Dan, Baldhead, good to see you guys. Welcome to the show. And not too long after we met, he wanted to get into that kind of thing. So he moved to Kona, where he got a job working for a place called Hula Daddy's in Kona. And he really worked with the guy at Hula Daddy's to help cultivate better quality coffee. Now, Kona's always been known for their coffee. And on a general scale, there are about 600, at one point, I know there were 629 farms growing coffee in Kona. Most of them are smallhold farmers. The newer generation of farmers has been a lot of gentleman farmers, a lot of people from California who made a lot of money, like in IT, decided to cash out, retire, move to Kona, and buy a small plot of land and grow coffee. And, these are people that are growing coffee that may not necessarily need to make a living off it. Now, certainly there are a lot of generational owners in Kona, but there's a lot of small farmers. And so typically in Kona, these small farmers will sell their cherries to like a bigger processing company like Greenwell Farms. So they'll bring their cherry to Greenwell, they'll sell it, and they're pretty much done with it, which is kind of how a lot of coffee is traded around the world. Now in Kona, Miguel went there, and this guy that owns Hula Daddy's, I forgot his name. I did meet him on a trip out there one year, and he's someone that was interested really in making better quality coffee. And Miguel really was the right guy to work with. And I think that's really where Miguel really cut his teeth, learning about coffee cultivation, processing methods. And then about 2008, he meets a woman by the name of Lori Obra, who owns a place called Rusty's Hawaiian Ka'u in the Ka'u district, which is just south of Kona. And Lori and her husband Rusty, who unfortunately had passed away a year or two before that. And if that name sounds familiar, because Rusty Obra, the son, is actually also a good friend of mine who lives in New Jersey and who's been in our chats quite a lot over the years. And anyway, so by 2008, he had met this woman Lori, and Lori was a chemist by trade. So they retired, they moved to Hawaii, they opened up this little kind of tiny coffee farm in Pahala, Hawaii, and in 2008, I happened to go to Hawaii, and he was like, "Hey, you need to go visit Lori and go check her out." And Lori, because being a chemist, had all these experimental processings going on. Like she was doing processing or fermentation in things like pineapple juice, with sea salt, with like in Pepsi Cola. And I was like, why did you do Pepsi Cola? And she's like, well, that's what they had at the store. I was like, I would have preferred Coke, but Pepsi will work. So she was really into all of these really wild. Oh, there's Rusty there. What's up, Rusty? Check, check. Okay, I think that's it. Are we back again? Am I doing ASL? That's hilarious, dude. That's hilarious. My apologies on that, guys. I was actually thinking about this before we started. I said, I wonder if there's enough charge on this transmitter. I guess there wasn't. My apologies. All right, let's see. Sorry, I'm like so into what I'm telling you, sharing this story that okay. So right after I said your name, and I'm babbling on for a few while. All right. So let's rewind. So there's Rusty, right? Rusty's mom is this little Filipino lady, and so Miguel is like, "Hey, man, you need to give," because I said I'm coming to Hawaii, and at this time, Miguel. Oh, that's right. At this time in 2008, Miguel hadn't fully made the transition to living full time in Hawaii. He was still splitting his time between Minneapolis and Hawaii because he wasn't in the islands during that trip, and so he's like, "Oh, we are good, right? With audio, yeah, I can see it on the." Yeah, I was so like into it. Like bald head saying, he's not looking. I was like, I was so into sharing this story with you that I was like, oh, okay. Mom, good morning. And okay, so like I was saying, he's like, go visit this woman, Lori, right? And I was like, okay. So I go there and I bring my cousin Jerry with me because we were both in Honolulu. And I was like, hey man, I need you to shoot. Come with me. I'll pay for your flight to Kona. We'll fly there for a day, drive down, visit this woman, and then fly back to Honolulu. Because we were like on a big family trip or something, right? And we go there and we go to this house where Lori lives in Pahala, and she's like, and we're hanging out talking to her. She's showing us all this stuff, and she's so like far ahead of the curve of processing. Like she's doing all these. So rewind a little bit. Lori and her husband Rusty were chemists in New Jersey, and then they retired and moved to Ka'u. And then, so they have a history. They have their backgrounds like in chemistry and working in labs. So she's doing all these testing of different types of processing, right? Like when I was there, I remember like she was doing pineapple juice fermentation. She's doing Pepsi Cola fermentation. She's doing like, I think sea salt fermentation, all these things. And I was just like, what is this craziness? This is amazing. Like, and so we spent the whole day with her. And one of the things that she was like, are you guys Filipino? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, if I knew you were Filipino, I would have made you bibingka. And I was like, if I knew you would make a bibingka, I would have told you we were Filipino, like before we came out. Like, so we would have had that exchange. But, you know, so I've always loved her since that moment, since we were out there. And so this is all stuff that they're doing that's super forward thinking. Before anyone else in the industry has even thought of this stuff, these people are doing it, right? And so Miguel got into that. And so one of the things about Miguel is that he's a little bit of a psycho, right? And I tend to gravitate towards psychos in the business, right? Those are kind of my people. So don't get me wrong. I don't mean that in necessarily a negative sense. But back around 2006, Miguel comes out with this line he's trying to launch this line of coffee called Our Miguel Coffee. And he's kind of working in this space of like luxury brands, hip hop, you know, African-American athletes, kind of that kind of vibe, right? Like everyone's kind of stylish and like hip, and he's pricing coffees very expensive for the time. Like even people in our niche of like third-rate specialty that's like trying to charge people $5 for a cappuccino. They're like, everyone's like, oh my God, that's too much. That's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. So they totally like mock him and rake him over the coals for it, like industry people. But, you know, so he kind of leaves that behind and he moves to Hawaii and starts working on the farms and working with, with Hula Daddy in Kona, and really learns about processing with Lori and, you know, how to cultivate coffee until now. So fast forward to a year ago when I go there. So basically at some point his parents sell off Paradise Roasters to another family. He's left that business before, but he decides at some point over the last few years that he wants to buy back the family business. So he buys back Paradise and then still maintains operations in Minneapolis, which I believe recently he closed, and then opens a little shop in Hilo to do roasting and I guess have a beachhead to work out of. So a year ago, I go to visit Kona and the Big Island, and I'm visiting Miguel, and he's got this little like shop in downtown Hilo. Guy's still crazy. There's still something crazy about this guy, right? Like I'm in his shop, right? In his like little shop, and he's got a bunch of rooms. And like, okay, most people process coffee at the farm or at a mill. They don't process their coffee in their roastery in the middle of downtown, the middle of their downtown, right? And there he is. He's got all this processing of coffee happening in the roastery itself. And I was like, what is this? So he's doing crazy, crazy stuff. So if you look back to the video that I have on the main channel from a place called Kona Coffee in Mountain View, Hawaii. So when I was on that trip last year, I happened to be there during the Kona Coffee Cultural Festival. And so I went to this event that they were having about, you know, baristas are going to show you how to make great coffee at home. All right, so I went, and one of the guys I met was Brian Lowe from Kona, and the way that he interacted with people, the way he talked about coffee, really kind of said to me, there's something about this guy and his coffee shop that I really need to check out. Because I'm like, this is one of those psycho guys. This is one of the crazies in the business, right? And so I made a special trip during that. Like, I was kind of doing the Circle Island thing, right? And I wasn't planning to go back towards Volcano after getting back to Hilo. But I was like, you know what? I got to go see this guy's joint. Drove out there, was richly rewarded because the guy is a psycho. And like, he's totally like focused on the guest. He's focused on the guest experience. He's focused on crazy quality coffee. And he's also friends with Miguel. And they work together doing special experiments. So I'm like, this guy, he's the right kind of psycho that we need to know. So all that said is just to try to give you the idea that Miguel Meza is a psycho that is focused on coffee and incredible coffee quality. And I'm honored that we're friends. Like, we've been friends for many years. I'm so honored by that. But I'm there and he gives me this coffee, and he's probably going to get upset if he hears this. He's like, you haven't used the coffee in a year? Like, okay, this coffee is a year old. I'll be straight up with that. And I have not opened the bag, as you can see. It has been sitting, it's been sitting inside in darker conditions. It hasn't been like in the sun. It hasn't had extreme temperature fluctuations, but it's still here. And here's the thing. So why am I not so worried about this coffee? Is because I know it's exquisitely produced. He produced it, so it's exquisitely produced. It's going to be properly handled, properly harvested, properly handled, properly processed, properly dried. Right? And in my experience of aging coffee for the last 16 years, those are great keys to coffee quality lasting for a long time. Now, of course, I've aged coffee in a green form. This, of course, is roasted. But I'm very sure that I'm not so worried about it. Plus, I also wanted to utilize it in a special way. Meaning I wanted to do a video about it. And this coffee, I know we've been very long-winded this morning, is what's called the Kona SL34 Champagne Natural. What all this means is that Kona is the origin, right? SL34 is the type of Arabica. So SL meaning Scots Lab 34. So you're going to see in different like coffees, SL34, SL28. Like, we used to get an SL28 from Costa Rica that was just fabulous, Now, not just because it says SL doesn't mean anything, right? It just means that it was developed at Scots Labs. And only certain strains of those SL numbers are actually like super like, whoa, typically. Like, I mean, you tell people you have an SL28 and that they're in the know, they're like, whoa, I want to try that. So the 34 is something I've had before, but this is something that he's doing what's called champagne natural processing. So my understanding of this is that he's taking champagne yeast, and of course there's quite a number of champagne yeasts out in the world, and we're talking about yeasts that are actually used to start fermentation for wines developed, or for champagne wines, right? And so there's a variety of those that are out there. So of course, they don't say exactly which strain of yeast, which is fine, but it's a champagne natural. So my understanding is that they take this yeast, they add it to the coffee, and since it's a natural, they're adding it to the cherry itself, and then letting it ferment and then dry out. I believe they put it into some kind of container to do the fermentation, to get it to be like, to get some kind of effervescence, right? And then I believe they rack it and dry it out. I mean, put it into raised drying beds and then dry it out. Which at Paradise Roasters means that if you did it in a shop, it's actually like these raised bed racks that are in one of the rooms. I was like, whoa, crazy. So this particular coffee, it says here, it's from a place called Uluvehi Coffee Farms, and it's a lighter roast, and we got taste notes of banana, coconut, and black cherry. Now, as you can see here, this coffee was roasted on October 28th, 2022. So it is a bit old. Aztec, Mom, good to see you guys both. But Paradise Roasters. This coffee from Ken David's coffee review got a 95. Ooh, 95. So amazing. Now, typically, a lot of us in the industry, we talk about Ken David's reviews, and usually we always kind of come to the general presupposition that anything that Ken David's gives is usually about 3 points higher. So at least the 92, which should be quite awesome, right? 92, like you don't really see 92 level coffees. You see like a lot of 84s, a lot of 83s. You start to get to 85 and people are like, Then people get to 87, they're like, oh, I should buy that. And then they get to 90 plus and people are like, well, I don't know if I can afford that. But this one, like Baldhead says, a lot of money, yeah, for sure. And how much is this? Honestly, to be honest, I don't know. I believe I put a link to a similar coffee in the description below. I put the link. I looked it up, put the link in the description, and I didn't even bother to see how much it costs. It's probably not cheap. I will be honest, he was very kind enough to gift this to me when I was there, which is probably all the more reason people are like, dude, why did you wait so long to try it? Sorry. Actually, he was just in Manila. He was hanging out with Z, the woman the woman producer that I'm very good friends with, that in the Because Coffee video from Manila. They were just hanging out there. We're all good friends, so it's like they sent me some messages. They're like, "Oh, we're going to these places." I was like, "Oh, that's amazing! I wish I was there. I'm very jealous." All right, so let's get into the coffee. So we're gonna open up the bag. Like I do like this kind of like extra printing they do. These I forgot the name of that right now, but they have a quote here: "Some beautiful paths can't be discovered without getting lost." Nice. All right, let's open this up. Oh man! Wow! Just without actually fully opening the bag, there's this fragrance that is just hitting my nose of fruit and berries and maybe a little bit of chocolate and oh, wow, that is beautiful. So I'm going to grab a tray so we can at least have a look at the coffee. And Aztec says, right about now, I'd pay any price to get. Where are you, Aztec? I've already. I know you might have told me this before, but my apologies that it has slipped my mind. All right, so here's the coffee. Look at that. It's really nice and lightly roasted. Very large, nicely sized, larger size beans. Look at that, uniform in consistency of size. Oh, a little bit of cracked here. I wonder what that's all about. Oh, no, that's not cracked. Oh, yeah. Maybe this is a little bit tight on the roller. We'll put that aside just for the moment. But as you can see here, really nice, even sizing. No real problems. Wow, lovely. Aztec, vicariously experiencing your pleasure. Oh, thank you. All right, so this is the coffee. Gosh, it really has a really beautiful, really kind of like fruity, chocolatey aroma. Wow, that's very, very nice. All right, so let us get to our grinding, or our weighing, or our grinding. I guess you could say that. I came here yesterday to make some coffee for myself before going to the house because, I don't really have any real apparatus to make. I don't have any coffee at the house. So it's always like this difficult journey. All right, so what we're going to do, I was thinking about this. What's the best way to present this? I think we're going to do the same process as yesterday with this cupping, filtered coffee, this filtered cupping style that we were doing from 1-1. So what we're going to do is we're going to do maybe, yesterday we were a little bit on, I thought that maybe we could get a little bit more extraction of, so I'm going to go a little bit finer, but more towards medium on the grind. We're going to grind directly into our vessel. there's our coffee. Look at that. There it is, all ground. Ah, Utah Outback, where good coffee is not. I hear you. I hear Death Wish coffee. Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. The Death Wish one. I'm very sorry to hear that it didn't turn out well. So I guess you are you in that area where Matt's Off-Road Recovery is? That part of Utah. That's very lovely. Very, very pleasant. Very kind of lighter milk chocolate on the nose. So we had more chocolate heaviness on the fragrance, but on the nose of the ground coffee, it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get our water back up to a boil. Got our timer here. We're going to get our brewer ready again. Sorry, it's a little bit messy. And again, like we did yesterday, I'm going to pre-wet the filter a little bit just so that it sits in the filter, in the V60 better. You guys know that I'm not I don't believe necessarily in pre-rinsing for taste purposes, but for convenience sake, certainly it's a nice touch when you can keep everything all together. Southeast. I think they're southwest. They had a big rally there back in March that my friends and I, because we do watch Matt's Off-Road Recovery every once in a while. Actually, I kind of met Matt last September when I was in LA for the Vid Summit conference, and he was one of the presented speakers. Nice guy. Really interesting channel. Well, if you like off-road and off-road recovery, what really strikes me as interesting is all these people a lot of these people that he's rescuing, they're out there alone and like sometimes in vehicles that aren't quite up to the challenge. I mean, what I mean by that is like I used to do a lot of off-roading when I had a Land Rover Discovery. I kidded that out, bigger tires, lifts, all kinds of skid plates and racks and shocks and springs. And, we went out, not as hardcore as some of those places in Utah, but, here on the East Coast, some pretty somewhat technical stuff, not bouldering. We didn't do bouldering. Like our vehicles weren't set for bouldering. We're just kind of trail riding, fjording rivers. But, but I'm not the kind of person, I'm not going to go out alone, right? Because you know what? You go out alone, you get stuck, man, you're in trouble, right? And depending on what happens, like we had one guy that broke his steering tie rod on the trail 2 miles up. Luckily, one of our guys had a onboard welder, so they were able to tack weld the bar together, and so the guy could go get off the trail and and replace the part. It's like, whoa, crazy. All right, so we got our water boiled. Let us get down to it. Come down. So we're going to do a 4-minute steep, just like we did with the cupping. Now, we rated this for 24 grams, so we're going to go to our normal 12-ounce serving, just like we did yesterday. So we're trying to do everything the same as we did yesterday. So that, again, always trying to get consistency in quantity so that hopefully we can find some level of correlation. And Aztec says, people do stupid things in remote areas, always travel with 2 vehicles and a week's worth of supplies. Yeah, oh man, I can imagine, very isolated. Yeah, so when I used to go out, we would always go out with at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 guys and their trucks. And a lot of us were fairly well kitted out. And actually, a lot of my friends were better kitted than I was. I was kind of like the guy that had the least amount of stuff. Like I didn't have a winch on my truck because I just never got it. Because back then, like nowadays you can go to like Harbor Freight and buy the Badlands winches, which are supposed to be like awesome winches. But back then, if you didn't buy a Warren, you were kind of in trouble. So, and then but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Like I've been out of that for quite a long time. Some of my friends are like, "Oh, why don't you do that to your truck now?" Because I've got a Tacoma Toyota, and I'm like, it'd be cool. Like we were looking at this one setup where these guys have these special like porta arms or something like that lift the vehicle, give you greater clearance so you could fit much larger tires, but they don't change the geometry, the factor geometry of the drivetrain, which, is better. It's about 20 grand. And I was like, that's cool. But, what I remember the most about going off-roading was that every time you went off-road, there would be a bill, because invariably we would do we would try to be very technical. We try to get out there and challenge ourselves, push ourselves. And when you push yourself, inevitably you're going to run into trouble. And so maybe I bashed in, I blew out a window once, ripped off a mirror, dented the door. I nearly ripped the rear door off of the truck once. So every time it was like every time we would go out, it's like, oh man, I got to spend another $600 just to repair. So after that, I was like now that's all I think about. Is like, if I go out, I got to spend all this money. Forget it. So I don't know. All right, so we're about 2.5 minutes here. Let's have a little smell. Nice. We're getting this nice kind of. What is that aroma? It's kind of more. I almost want to say it's like a Robitussin-esque kind of aroma. And Aztec says, plus have a bicycle to get yourself 400 miles back. Yeah, I mean, I see those guys on the mats off-road, and it's like, I always wonder, how far are they really going in on some of these trails? I mean, it looks like it's a significant distance. And I don't mean just 10 miles. I mean, it looks like it seems like sometimes they're on a road, the main road, and they're going off, and it's like they almost get to the mountains, and the mountains were in the distance from the main road. And I was like, whoa. And I hear that his minimum charge $750. I was like, man, $750 to recover your. I mean, of course, if you got a brand new Jeep that costs you $65,000, you're going to spend the $700 to get it yanked back. But all right, we're almost at the time. 3 minutes, 50 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our. I'm going to give it a little bit of a stir. Now, one of the things I did yesterday that was incorrect was I poured it too heavily. So today I'm going to pour a lot. Whoa, that is hot. All right, children, that's not recommended. There's really a very interesting aroma coming up. When we start off, the dry fragrance was very cherry. Was it cherry? More berry fruitish, fruity, chocolatey. And then we got a little bit of the grind going on, and that changed a little bit more milk chocolate and a little bit. And then when it was wet, we were getting a bit of, more like a Robitussin-esque. This is different as well. So here's one of the issues that I've always kind of thought about when it comes to filtering coffee after you brewed it, right? Like if we do a pour over, we put all the coffee in here and it flows through. But as you can see here, we're getting a little bit of stagnation in the brew because we poured it in. And part of the reason I tried to stir it to raise the coffee grinds is that I was trying to see if we could avoid this, right? But what happens is when you let the coffee settle somewhere else and then you pour it through a filter, a lot of the big particulates are staying behind, and what you're getting are really fine stuff. Like look here, right? You can see the fines there. And what those do, so typically these fines are suspended in the mix, right? When all this is all together, those fines are kind of in the matrix of the coffee. But once you separate them, you pour them through, you only get the fines that are running into the filter, or you get a lot more fines. And so those fines will work their way into the fabric of the paper and then essentially clog the filter. So it'll basically, it'll either tremendously reduce the flow or just stop the flow altogether. So that's one of the things I was trying to avoid with that. It worked fairly well. I mean, not perfect, but well enough. All right, let's have a look at it does have a medicinal aroma. which, you know, I have to give a thought that it could be a factor of the age of the coffee, right? I mean, it's a year old, a year and a month old, so I can't fault that. So we've got under 300 mils, but I do want to have a little bit of a taste of it before we begin. So very concentrated, a little bit more bitter because of the concentration. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our kettle. We're going to ratio the coffee the correct way to the point that we want it. So I'm going to pour it in here just to kind of give it a little bit of tempering in the temperature. And then we're going to add up the water to bring it to our desired 350 grams. There we go. Nice volume there. Let's get back to. All right, very clear. Look at that, very clear. Kind of reminds us of our brew yesterday, right? Like when yesterday we had the similar kind of results as far as clarity, and you know, one way to interpret this is that it's not very heavy in the extraction. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but we did get beautiful coffee yesterday. Let's see how this tastes. Oh, very light. A grape kind of character. Like initial thoughts were grape. Now there's a little bit of tardiness that suggests to me of grapefruit. And David says, yes, it does look like yesterday's tea. One of my good friends, who's a very close friend of mine, who lives in Bangkok, Thailand, Frank. He really enjoys coffee, and years ago we were talking about this, and when the geisha first came out, and he's like, hey man, I finally got to try that geisha. I was like, oh yeah, what'd you think about it? He's like, well, it tastes like tea. Yeah, that's something that it tastes like. A lot of people say that. He's like, then he was like, you know what, man? I want coffee. If I want to drink tea, I'll drink tea. I don't need my coffee to taste like tea. I was like, touche. It's very light. It's very juicy. Again, I wonder, like, well, what I was wondering from yesterday, Brew, is that I'm making the ratio of the water to coffee for a 12-ounce cup. And I wonder, like, even though this is the ratio we're looking for, I wonder if that's correct for this style of brewing. Like, we are giving it the full time, right, in steeping. But I'm wondering, like, if we use it, you know, I'll have to try with a different brew method to see if it brings out a little bit more oomph. Like, right, it's always kind of like this yesterday's brew and today's brew, and it could just be the coffees are really like this. Lighter, brighter, juicy. Waiting to see if there's going to be some sweetness developing as the coffee cools. And Omniel says something about diluting after the fact that I don't like it as much. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like I said, is that we're ratioing it for 12 ounce. So we're using 24 grams of coffee, and it's supposed to go to 350 mils. That's our typical brew recipe for pretty much most of our brews. And so I do bring it back to that, right? Like with the AeroPress, we use the same basic build, meaning that we're brewing it for 12 ounces. So we'll bring the total volume to 12 ounces. But, you know, I don't know. This could be a challenge to say that, hey, you need to find a better ratio recipe to brew it this way for its final, so that the volume that you're brewing in this manner is the final serving volume, rather than adding water. Like in the video with Dawn at Wan, the ratio. I have to look at the video again and see. Maybe we'll try this again and the day next week, and see by taking the ratio that he's using, and I think it was 1 to 11. He's brewing everything and ratioing everything in the one go. Maybe that will deliver us different results, better results. Oh, Uncle Michael, how are you, man? Happy holidays to you. How things in Tokyo or in Japan? No, but Danielle, I'm always open. We're always open here to discussion and challenging our ways. Like, it's very easy for someone like me who's been in the business for over 20 years to have my preconceived notions and be like curmudgeonly, like, oh no, we'll never do that. Like, no, silly people, that's just not right. I'm the guy that's been doing it for so long. But no, I don't want to be like that. I want to be open to learning things. And you know what? That's why I want to be very open with how we do things here, because you know what? We may find a better way. Like really, I'll go back. I keep going back to this. Like when we did our degassing series, same coffee, roasted. We roasted it, cupped it, or tasted it, and then every day, same time, we're tasting the coffee the same way. And one of the things that really has challenged me is that we always in the industry we've always touted this whole idea of like you have 24 hours before CO2 really impacts your coffee. And based on that little bit of series, man, I don't even think we have 24 hours anymore. It's like if you want to have an accurate tasting of it, you need to taste it either right away or a week later, right? Which kind of, for production environment, quality control, that really kind of wreaks havoc on like things. If you were like, if this was, I'm sure people will push back on it because, everyone's used to roasting one day, cupping the next in the morning. Well, if you can't do that, you have to do it right away. Then you're like jamming, people's schedules. So who knows? All right, let's see. How's it going? Yeah, definitely sweeter, more sweetness is coming up. But we're not getting a ton of body, right? It's very light on the body. Maybe that's the coffee. Maybe that's the brewing style. Maybe it's our dilution. I think we'll have to come back to this. We'll have to come back to this. I still have some more of the 1-1, the Temangong from our tasting on Wednesday, and I'll still have plenty of this. So maybe what we'll do is we'll come back next week and give it a try. So let's say that this is inconclusive. It's nice, it's fruity, it's light, it's bright, it's kind of juicy, sweetness. Delicate. It's a very delicate. And there's a little bit of this effervescence. It's like sprightly effervescence on the palate. Let's try to remember those notes before we get to that. Okay, so before we leave, I wanted to share with you the Sans Rival. Sans Rival means without rival in Spanish. And I believe somehow this comes from a derivative of Spanish colonization of the Philippines for 400 years. Filipinos like me being beholden to white Spanish masters. In this case, I'm kind of okay with it. So what this is baked meringue, right? So these are baked meringue layers, mixed with sugared butter and chopped cashews. Now, I really, when I started thinking about doing this yesterday, I was like, oh, maybe I need to get some Barako, some Liberica. Remember on Wednesday we talked about the Liberica and how Liberica is really a popular coffee in the Batangas area of the Philippines. I was trying to think, do I have any of this here? Do I have any of this here? And I don't really think I have any of it here, at least not unboxed or not in a position now that's easy for me to access. But like I said, I think I even mentioned this about the Sans Rival and drinking Barako together. But since I was a child, my mom would make this, and I love it. But here's the key, right? You have to have creamy butter, sugar, and you have to have chewy meringue. There's some places that make it really kind of thick and hard and just crunchy. I don't like that. I want to have a little bit of chew, a little bit of snap, but a little bit of chew, right? I like textural juxtapositions in food. And this, like you can, and I can eat it cold where it's a little bit harder. This is getting a kind of medium, or I can drink it, eat it soft. And I love it. I love it. It'll come as Sancerval as a cake where they slice it like this, or they have little like single servings called Silvanas. The names, the nomenclature is different, but the actual product is essentially the same. But it's not easy to find, especially in America. Like you can go to places, and you can go to some of the bakeries. If you go to, you have a Goldilocks somewhere near you, they'll sell Silvanas. You can ask them, and they'll typically tell. But if you can find some, I think this is the greatest accompaniment to coffee. Now, it probably won't be the greatest accompaniment to this coffee because this coffee is light and bright and like. But you get yourself a nice medium roast, medium plus bodied coffee that's nice quality, that can stand up to sugar and like cream. Man, amazing! Like it's amazing. It's truly, truly amazing. Let's just have a taste. I'll share with you a taste of it. So this is our. I don't know if it will focus. There we go. Look at that. It's focusing. So baked meringue. Evidently, my mom was telling me she found an easier way to make it. She hasn't explained that to me yet. Oh, Mamma mia. Oh, even with that is. Oh, all right. That works. I was thinking maybe it wouldn't work, but I was wrong. That fruitiness is actually kind of nicely pairing with it. I did not expect that. But it's a little bit different. Like, so for example, let's say you eat something and you drink it with wine. You get the savory. But sometimes you'll eat something and you'll drink it with like Coca-Cola. It's more like that. All right. One more bite. I know I'm talking too long, and I know you guys want to go shopping for Black Friday. What are you guys going to get for Black Friday? I mentioned on Wednesday the Bear Dynamic DT990 Pro headphones. The open back headphones. I almost went to go buy some on Wednesday, and I'm thinking, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go buy it because I had a lot of meetings on Wednesday. But I've been sitting around here all day yesterday. I was like, then in the morning, and I found a place. One of the Micro Center has it for $180, but Guitar Center has it for $160. So it's a little bit more of a discount. I'm leaning towards it. Oh, Mama! Thank you, Mom. And Eric says, I will ask my Filipino friend about this dessert. He's a children's book illustrator known for flat styling. Oh, fantastic. I was actually talking to my cousin. She had been working on this children's book series, this Filipino children's book series, that she's been developing for quite a while. I'm like, you got to release that, man. You got to get out there and put that out there. Maybe she'll get out with it soon. Hopefully she will. I think it'll be really nice. I think there's a hunger amongst parents that want something that will help their children to identify with their culture a little bit better, right? Like when I was young, there was Little Black Sambo, which probably isn't the best, probably not the best example of a children's book in our nation's history. But well, it happened. But that's good. Yeah. So ask your friend about that. If you have friends, and the rest of you guys, if you know other people that in your area, and I'm sure, like, let's say, like, Mom, if you're in Queens, man, there are a lot of Filipino restaurants in Queens, so I'm sure they've got to have it there. So they're gonna, and there's Filipinos all over the country. So somebody is making the Sancerval somewhere, and I do highly recommend it. Like, once we're finished here, I'm going to be having the rest of this Sancerval and the rest of this coffee with much gusto. And I'm going to use that as my fuel before I head out to buying the. I think I will get the headphones. All right, so I guess that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate you being here again. And there's guys from you all from all over the world. Awesome. Canada, Japan, America. So great to see all of you. And down in Mexico, beautiful. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day and a fabulous weekend. Next week's going to be, I think, our last week of daily live streams, because I do have to start tearing down our space, and I need to get it all done by the end of December. And there really is a lot. So we will do our normal daily routine next week, and then I'll have more details as we figure, because everything is up in the air still as far as where we're moving to and how that's all going to work out. So lots of, and also if you happen to see it, I dropped a new video today instead of Saturday. This year's gift guide for coffee ideas. So there's a few items there that maybe you may have heard about or may not have heard about, or might find kind of interesting. And if you need to buy something for someone, then hopefully there's some ideas there for you. But yeah, there it is. I'm Yale, Eric, Aztec, Mom, Uncle Michael. Good to see all of you guys. Rusty, hope you're still out there. And well, thank you, man. I appreciate that, Aztec. I appreciate that. It's very kind. All right, so back again Monday, 10 a.m. Hope you have a great weekend, and see you next time.